I believe we now have the good Senator Brandon Shippy with us. Let's see if we can bring him up here. There he is. Hey, Senator, how are you this Good Friday?
I'm well. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. You had two fantastic bills that you presented this week in committees, and I kind of wanted to cover them a little bit, get people on board with what exactly it is your thought process, and make sure that people can help rally around these two important issues. The first was we wanted to touch on was this dealing with foster parents and their Second Amendment rights. So, can we play a little bit of that clip, guys, and then we'll go to Brandon.
One of the issues that we're actually addressing here, I'm going to be very transparent about this. I brought this up in committee a couple of weeks ago. Foster parents have a burden placed on them currently to lock up their guns and ammunition in separate locations, which I believe puts them in a vulnerable position, unable to adequately defend their home against immediate threats. As a foster care provider, this is a sacrifice our family made. I don't believe it is a sacrifice that foster care providers should make. And so I've been working with the department on this. They are very supportive of this. The solution that we came up with, because we wanted to make sure we were not infringing as the Department of Health and Welfare upon the Second Amendment rights of foster care providers, we will be creating the department will be creating an educational video on gun safety, which hasn't existed before now, as part of the orientation for becoming licensed. There are steps that you must.
Okay, let's bring Senator Brandon Shippy up here. This is very good. I had no idea. I think most people had no idea that this was part of the process here. But how did you stumble upon this? And did you have some parents come to you? What was the background for this bill?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I apologize for being late. I did have a little bit of technical difficulties on my end here. So my wife and I became foster care providers in 2017, and that was when we really first were introduced to the problem. At the time, not really thinking that I could potentially bring a solution. We just complied with it and said, "Hey, this is a sacrifice we're willing to make," and move on from there. We adopted a couple of our two daughters out of the foster care system in 2019. We went ahead and let our license lapse, and then so more recently we got relicensed again, and then just was reminded of some of the burdens that were being placed upon foster care providers. One of the things that the new director Alex Adams has done, and I think he's done a really good job, is to try to deregulate as much as we can within reason, so that it's easier for foster care providers to become licensed and to do their job and to partner with the Department of Health and Welfare in taking care of these kiddos. And this right here, I think, was a huge hurdle that he wasn't able to get removed from the rules. And so this was really why this legislation came about. Say, hey, well, let's just move this over, and we're removing a bunch of the rules over into code, which are just very reasonable, straightforward rules, such as you need to have a working toilet in your house, you need to have a kitchen sink, you need to have hot water for baths, and just some basic requirements that any home would have.
Yeah, those sound reasonable.
Absolutely. And then and to place this other requirement to say you need to have your guns and your ammunition locked up in two separate locations, you are essentially disarmed. You cannot defend your home against any immediate threat. And especially rural folks, if they're 10, 15 minutes away from any law enforcement, they're on their own. And depending on how you have them locked up, but you might be 5 minutes before you can access your firearms to have them loaded and ready to go. And so this is just an undue burden and probably an infringement upon Second Amendment rights. So we think we came up with a really good solution for this. When it comes to foster care providers, there needs to be some sort of understanding. The kids in foster care are not the same as your biological kids. They don't understand maybe boundaries. Maybe they didn't have any boundaries before. But it's also going to be the difference between an infant or a 14-year-old boy with behavioral issues. Each case is going to be different and unique. And so you're better off to equip them with knowledge through educational videos and so forth, to know here are some good expectations as to a good safe approach. Most parents that the department partners with, they're very trustworthy and there has to be a trusting relationship anyway, because the department is not in their home every day to check and see if they're following the rules. So you really have to rely on the trustworthiness and responsibility of the foster parents to keep the kids safe in the first place. So we think we came up with a really good solution on this.
Yeah, I think so, and I also I can only imagine what your thought process was again when you decided that maybe you wanted to re-up your license, and then you realize you have you have to deal with that 2A issue again, and you already have 2 daughters now. So now it's even more of an incentive, because you're like, I need to protect my 2 daughters that I adopted, right? I mean, that's what that's a really great motivation to get this going. So yeah, I think you're spot on here, and I think you'll probably get some of that resistance from the anti-gun lobby and so forth. But other than that, how do you think this will move forward?
I think it's going to go really well, honestly. Senator Harris, Mark Harris, he is the assistant majority leader. He came to me and asked me to co-sponsor the bill with me. In my opinion, this is a very common sense bill. I think it's going to have widespread support. Will it have bipartisan support? It's hard to say. I think it should, but it's hard to say. We'll see how that plays out. But this should sail through. I don't anticipate any real problems, especially with the department behind me on this and supporting me in what we're doing.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so this is Senate bill. Did this get printed? So what's the number on this bill?
I think it's Senate Bill 34. I don't have that before me, but I believe that's the one that we are.
Very good. Yeah, maybe I need to refresh my page here. I'm only up to 33. So yeah, 34. There it is. Yeah, Senate Bill 34. So folks, if you want to follow this along, Senate Bill 1034. We're going to give the full number. I know you senators over there like to shorten things for your own side, but there's a 34 on the other side that's different. So yeah, Senate Bill 1034 is this bill. So be sure if this is an issue that's passionate for you, you follow along here.